Every once in a while, I will stumble across a headline, some kind of link to a story, and I will think to myself, this can't be true. This is not real. I don't care how blue of a city it is. I don't care how blue of a state it is. It is too absurd for my brain to comprehend, only to discover later through further research, just like Anna Kasparian did when she found out that people who dismembered the corpses of 2 murdered people in Long Island, New York, were released because you couldn't get bail set for you for that particular crime, that it is in fact real.
She's crazy. This isn't a thing. This isn't real. This isn't real. So I looked it up. It's real, guys. It's real.
And today's story is exactly one of those cases, because in the city of Oakland, they are now removing traffic lights. Well, they're not really removing them. They're being stolen, but they're no longer replacing traffic lights with actual lights. They're using stop signs because they cannot get a hold of traffic light theft in this major city. It's absolute madness. We're going to get into it. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who signed up over at actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
And remind you that this show is available in podcast form. Links in the description if you want to check it out that way.
And it turns out the city removed the traffic lights altogether and replaced them with 4-way stop signs after dealing with months of people stealing copper and then tampering with an electrical box.
So to be clear, even though this is being broadly reported as them stealing the traffic lights themselves, what's actually going on right here is that they're opening the box that allows the traffic lights to actually function and stealing the copper wire out of those boxes. And it has gotten to the point, and it's so unmanageable, and it's happened so many times, that now the city of Oakland has just straight up given up and decided that they're going to put 4-way stop signs in these intersections rather than have to deal with the modern struggle of getting your copper wire stolen from your traffic lights, because that's how out of hand criminality actually is. Now, every time I talk about Oakland, people will say Oakland was always terrible, Oakland always sucked, Oakland was always bad, but in reality, that's actually not the case.
And today, Oakland leaders releasing the annual crime data report, which they say shows a steady 5-year decline in shootings, homicides, and robberies. There were 75 homicides occurring in Oakland last year. That is down from 85 in 2016, and that follows that downward trend. 2016 brought a 12% drop in violent crime versus the 5-year average, and a 20% drop in robberies.
Prior to the Black Lives Matter riots, that is what was going on in Oakland. They were reporting about how they had finally turned it around, how they had driven homicide down below 100 for the first time in 30 years. They were talking about decreases in theft, and they were crediting the increase in police patrols, the increase in recruitment at the Oakland PD, for the reason why crime was driven down.
The police department has credited the improvement on a more prominent police presence and getting help from the community. With better technology, more residents and business owners are giving police video evidence of crime.
However, after the Black Lives Matter riots, despite the successes that the Oakland PD had, they decided they were going to cut the funding of the police. They decided that they were going to reduce the number of officers. And like I said a million times on this channel, even if you restore the funding at a later point, the fact of the matter is the officers that go into early retirement and the recruitment deficit that you create by the changing culture against the police does not get repaired when that dollar amount gets restored. So what we see in a lot of these left-wing cities is that they actually increase net the funding for their police after the cuts, but they still have less officers on the streets, and that leads to crazy situations like in Oakland, where we talked about the In-N-Out closing, where car break-ins are absolutely out of control, and where you can't even have traffic lights because the copper wire keeps getting stolen.
Neighbors say the stop sign is a sign and a reflection of the city's condition. They say the city's inability to clear a homeless encampment next to the intersection is leading to this kind of issue.
So a lot of this is being pinned on the homeless encampment that is nearby this particular area, and we've talked about this on the channel multiple different times, that in the state of California, and in fact large parts of the western part of the United States of America that are covered by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, these homeless encampments, these homeless people have God-tier rights above the average everyday citizen. But to be clear, the rulings that allow people to camp in public in perpetuity, that give them God-tier rights compared to the citizens, that allow them to wreck communities without any recourse from the people who actually pay taxes in those communities, have been in place for a very long time. This has been a thing that has been present in the state of California and has been an issue for a while. But the issue that we're seeing right now is that there's no police enforcement. That if you get arrested for stealing copper wire, then you can't be sent to prison no matter how many times you do it. You have to be referred to county jail. The county jails are full, so you end up being released onto the streets. Not to mention the Alameda district attorney is Pamela Price, who refuses to prosecute anyone for anything. She's one of those Soros DAs, those woke DAs. So you have a situation where this is escalating beyond the point that was already a problem that in part is created by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, to the point where they can't even have traffic lights in these areas. They have to have stop signs, and they have Da Lin say, this is like considered a sign by people. I get the pun right there, but in reality, it's an absolute tragedy for the city of Oakland, who again, just a few years ago, was singing the praises of the police department and all the positive change that they made in different various communities in terms of crime. This is a regression in Oakland, and it is due to the fact that policymakers chose this path.
Drive on the busy East 12th Street, you'll come to this high-hanging stop sign above the road. Neighbors say city workers replaced the traffic lights with four-way stop signs in the last week.
It's just telling us that the city is giving up on us.
Courtesy of Google Earth, this was how the intersection looked before. But neighbors say those lights haven't worked in months. They were either blinking red or completely out.
So I do like that the local news decided that they had to prove this using Google Maps, that there was in fact a traffic light right there, as if we were going to disbelieve them. But apparently, like they said in this segment, this light hasn't worked in months, and Oakland has sent out their people to repair this, replace the wiring over and over and over again. But each and every time they end up doing this, the wiring ends up being stolen, and this is due to the fact that they don't prosecute anyone for anything in Oakland. This is due to the fact that they don't have police patrolling high crime areas where people continuously offend, and this is a problem that is only going to spiral out of control even more, because in reality, these same people who are stealing copper wire out of these traffic lights have not been held accountable, and they're able to do this, and in response to them doing this for months and months and months, there's not going to be a crackdown. They're just going to replace it with the stop sign.
This is a brand new solution to a problem that's taken many forms here.
Mason Young lives near the intersection. He believes the stop signs are better than non-working traffic lights, which he blamed for this crash that sent a truck into the fence of a repair shop.
We got to stop just putting Band-Aids on things, although, you know, a Band-Aid's better than bleeding out.
So you have a resident right here who says there's been accidents in this particular area, a particularly bad one as of late. They show you the images of a pickup truck slamming into a fence because these lights were completely out of commission, and he says this is better, and he actually gives a pretty good analogy for how we shouldn't be putting Band-Aids on problems, but sometimes a Band-Aid is better than bleeding out. And honestly, I'm tempted to agree. If you can't have traffic lights in your particular area, you can't actually address the cause of this problem, which is people stealing the copper wire because there's no consequences for that behavior, then I guess the stop sign is what you do in that situation, even though it is a sad, sorry state of affairs in the city of Oakland.
The city did try to fix the traffic light at least a few times, but once they fix it, normally within a week or so, it will go out again.
Tamley owns the corner auto repair shop, been here for over 25 years. He and neighbors blame the problem on repeated copper thefts.
So here you have the local business guy who's in the automotive repair industry. Honestly, if I was more conspiratorial, I would say he's stealing the copper wire in order to get more people to crash, in order to get them more in his shop. But that's just me joking around, because in reality, what he's pointing to, and all the neighbors that are actually interviewed here, some on camera, some off camera, are agreeing with, is the fact that even if they fix these particular lights, they're usually busted up again within a week. On top of that, you have a bunch of these different homeless people, or not really homeless because they have RVs, just stealing power straight up from the city by tapping their own power lines, which is an absurd problem to allow to go unchallenged, but it's Oakland, so that's normal.
Also, they point out homeless people are stealing power from city electrical boxes. As you can see, someone is running a wire from this box to an RV. A city spokesman says they try to put heavy cement blocks on top of the boxes, but people just drag them out. The city says when people illegally connected cables to the boxes, they knocked out the traffic lights.
Can we just talk about how absurd that is right here? So you have copper wire theft. That is definitely a problem. But then you have these people in RVs that don't move, by the way, that are illegally tapping these lines right there. You could follow the line to the person stealing the power, and the city's like, well, you know, when people do that, what ends up happening is that knocks out the traffic light. And we tried putting big cinder blocks on top of this, but it turns out that given enough time and energy, people can remove large cinder blocks in order to tap the power. Now, we could, at any point in time, in any second, follow this line directly to that RV, then knock on the door of the RV and say, hey, you know what? You're going to jail because you're committing a crime. You're stealing power from the city for your RV. And by the way, your RV's camped out here, parked illegally and all that. So we're going to get you for that. But for some reason, we're just never going to do that. We're never going to attempt to actually solve the problem. We're just going to talk about how, you know, when you split the power illegally from this particular area, things that were once powered by that power source end up losing power. And we can't solve the problem. We can't follow this. Oh, I'm sorry. I tripped over a cord while I was explaining this cord to the RV because we're in the city of Oakland, and why would we ever hold anyone accountable for anything? Not to mention the fact that when you run these cords, you run the risk of having fires. You run the risk of other problems. The legitimate businesses ultimately end up suffering. Legitimate people that are driving, just trying to get to work, actually trying to do positive things in the city of Oakland, suffer the consequences with the accidents and all these other issues, delays and whatnot. But all of that needs to be tossed aside, thrown asunder, because that homeless person in the RV, wink wink, they're not really homeless because they're in an RV, has a god tier right to steal power from everybody else in the city of Oakland. They have a god tier right to ruin this community, and there's nothing we can do. We could never solve this mystery because, again, we would have to follow this cord at least 100, maybe even 50 feet away to the RV that is its source. I mean, God forbid you walk up to the cord, you see an illegal power line, you take a cable cutter and you cut the damn thing. That could solve the problem right there. At least make them rebuy their cables over and over again. And if anybody tried to do that, I'm sure that they would go in jail because, you know, that's how Oakland and California works. You mess with the god tier rights of the criminals, of the people who are camping, you'll face the consequences. But instead, regular people just have to deal with the fact that they're going to have an encampment nearby, copper wire stolen, and no traffic lights.
If you really want to fix the stop sign, I think you really have to clean up this homeless encampment.
That's easier said than done. The encampment stretches about 3 blocks on East 12th Street. The city tried to clear it out for the past 5 years, but it keeps coming back and gets bigger.
Again, just think about how absurd that is. The city has tried to clear out this open-air drug market, this homeless encampment, for 5 years. And every time they make a little progress, every time they send some people away, it ends up expanding. It ends up becoming more powerful. Essentially, the homeless encampment is getting a Saiyan-style Zenkai boost in that every time it's nearly killed, it comes back even stronger. And while that might make sense in Dragon Ball as a plot device, it doesn't make any sense here. It's nonsensical in every possible way. Block off this area. Keep the police there. Drive these people away. I know this might be shocking for people out there in the audience to consider, but use the police to do this thing. It's called arreste. I'm not sure what this word is. It's ARREST. The people who are committing crimes, and all of a sudden they will face consequences. You could also send them to a place called Jail. I think it's called Jail, Jail, or prison. Prison. I'm not sure anybody in Oakland has ever heard of these words that is in government, but these are things that you could send people to as a consequence for their actions. That's the way you could deal with these particular problems, but nobody wants to do that. You're looking at people who have no political will to engage in anything, so instead you have the local news saying, yeah, they just replaced the traffic lights with stop signs because people are stealing copper wire, and we have illegal power lines running from, you know, this power box right here, probably dangerous for everyone, and into this RV, and there's no possible way we could figure it out. Again, I will say this over and over throughout the course of this video because I feel like it should be the most obvious thing in the world. Go follow the line to the place where it connects to the other place. You're at one end in the power box for the city. Yes, I just bumped the skeleton again. Follow it to the other end and then arrest the person that's illegally tapping the line. Arrest the person that's stealing power. Have consequences for the person that's committing a crime, and maybe, just maybe, that person won't continuously commit the crime. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm insane. Maybe the whole city is insane. Maybe everybody's insane because these solutions are obvious.
Many businesses already closed down on East 12. And I don't know how long we're going to be here, because once they move to outside of the sidewalk, we will be gone.
Now, I said this before and I'll say it again, but crime drives poverty, not the other way around. All these different various businesses in this area are closing. This guy's saying, hey, look, once this camp expands, there's no way I could be here. It's driving away all the traffic. People don't want to bring their cars to be fixed here. It's completely out of hand, so I'm going to leave. Now, they cut to the local news guy after this and he says, oh, this guy hopes they find housing for them and blah, blah, blah. And honestly, that's not his problem. That is not something for him to have to worry about, for him to have to deal with. And we've seen the way that California tries to build housing for the homeless, and you end up with one-bedroom apartments that cost $800,000 a pop. They never get built, and they never address the problem. This isn't a housing problem in California. And by the way, they do have a housing problem. They should clear regulations and red tape so that they can actually build. That is an issue, but this is a crime problem. They need to address the criminality, and that will be the solution. Now, again, those are just my thoughts related to this topic. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about absolute madness in the city of Oakland. Till next time.